This is my friend Ashton. Say hello, Ashton. Hello, Ashton. You know, that's not really a very funny joke. Then why did you make me say it? You're the one with your hand up my... stop right there. Ashton is a character from the show Critical Role, where a bunch of nerdy voice actors sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons. Sounds lame. Ashton is a character created and performed by the actor Talesin Jaffe. Ashton is a colorful, grumpy Earth Genasi who likes to hit things and swears a lot. Damn right. We were inspired by this character to create a Jim Henson-style puppet, complete with moving eyebrows and eyes. Why don't you demonstrate? Why don't you make me? Do you believe in free will? I have no choice. So do your eyebrows. There you go. And now look at me. That's it. The mechanics to make this work is something that I've wanted to tackle for a long time, since I was 10 years old and I saw my first ventriloquist dummy. And I feel like I've worked out a simple and elegant solution that you too can do at home. Hey, will you tell them to like and subscribe? Nope. This is my first prototype for the eye mechanism. I built it on expanded polystyrene, and what I really learned in this part of the build was that I could connect the back of the eye with a spring to this rod, and when I move the rod back and forth, the springs will bend, moving the eyes, but then they snap back into place. And so it gives it a lot of rigidity and a lot of strength, but at the same time, it's really flexible.
For my prototype head, I cut out multiple layers of foam. I shaped each piece and then I skewered them together.
And so this is what I have come up with. I have 2 ping pong balls in here for eyes, and I even managed to get in an eyebrow mechanism as well. And it's all being controlled through a cable that is running from the back of the head through this vinyl tubing to a couple of clothespins.
Where do you fall on that?
Yeah. Answer in the doobly-doo. So here I have 2 clothes pegs, and these are the kind that have the spring mechanism built into them. And here I've actually hot glued 2 of them together, so when I open it, I can open it double the distance of just one. When I pull on the clothes peg, that pulls the cable through the vinyl tube, and then pulls down on my wire here, which is connected to more springs, which operates the eyebrows. And then for the eyes, that cable running through the vinyl tube is connected to the edge here of that wooden bar. And I have another spring mounted right here, which will snap the whole contraption back into place so that the eyes naturally rest facing forward. But when I squeeze, the eyes move. So this was about 2 days of extreme hyperfixation, and I really kind of don't remember most of that time. And in the end, the universe made this through me. Now, how I have done this slightly different is rather than doing the layered cake style to build up the head, what I decided to do was to just take the piece of XPS foam and cut out the face piece because it was generally fairly flat and I knew I could come in and sand and round the edges later. How this is different is I took a hole saw and just cut an eye socket hole right through the 1-inch foam. Then, using an X-Acto knife, I came in and cut out an area above and below the eye so I could mount a bracket, which was just a clear piece of acrylic tubing that I picked up at Taps Plastic. I cut it to about 3/4 of an inch thick. I made sure that the internal diameter of the acrylic tubing was a little bit larger than the skewers that I was using to mount the eyes. By having the tubing here, I feel like I've got way more fluidity in the eye movements compared to my prototype, which was just these skewers directly into the foam. And I feel like every time I was pressing the button, I was pushing against the foam. Here, it really just slides back and forth very elegantly. I used the same system with the acrylic tube to make the eyebrow mechanism. With 2 holes drilled into a tongue depressor, I hot glued 2 dowels at 90 degrees. This is the back side of the eye mechanism. One end of the dowel goes into the eyebrow hole. On the opposing dowel, I mounted a spring.
The mouth is made from 2 pieces of hardboard that's glued to some felt. In the interest of ergonomics, I glued down a tiny foam pillow for my fingies, covering it up with some more felt and then some elastic to hold everything in place. I temporarily held the mouth in place with some duct tape. Now I like a strong-chinned character, but this was a little too much. Ashton has rocks coming out of their head, so instead I decided to give them a good 90s flat top. Here's where I could do my King Prawn impersonation, but I'll have to leave that for your imagination. Alright, I think I got the general shape of Ashton's right arm. Make it big and muscular. It's a barbarian. That will make his body slender and muscular. Can still do Laudna.
I have a feeling there'll be more puppets, trust me. Wow, that was really creepy coming at the camera. Like, there was a level of wow. Oh, whoa. It's not that creepy in 3 dimensions, but in 2, it's way creepier. Oh my god, it's weird. It's weird how much it looks like Talesin.
I know, right?
Like,
I do not have the artistic confidence to say I am going to make this puppet look like Talesin, but I feel like I've been channeling him.
yeah.
And I feel like he's come through.
Yeah, right?
You know? Alright, we've got Ashton's left arm and his torso. Let's go out to the shed so we can cut this up. One by one. Come. Alright.
Say all that again.
So that was not a good cut. It's almost like I didn't have enough light or something. Huh. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk? Not knowing how to draw a muscular torso, I consulted the internet. Well, this time I think I'm making myself a husband.
You're making yourself a partner.
A partner?
Ashton's a they.
That's right, that's true. So. But I mean... Meow.
Yeah, wow. Jesus.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Like David from the marble, Ashton is already in the foam. I only had to remove the unnecessary parts. Next, I had to figure out how to attach the arms to the body. Wanting Ashton's arms to move somewhat human-like, I made a ball and socket joint from the top of a cranberry juice bottle and a ping pong ball. Deploying the hole saw again, I cut out a section for the ping pong ball to rest. On the other side, I mounted the bottle cap.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I hot glued one end of this acrylic tube and stuck it into a ping pong ball. The other side of the acrylic tube will attach to Ashton's arms.
Okay, I have really Frankensteined this guy together here with just mounds of hot glue here. Oh, it doesn't look pretty in the end. It's all about the paint and what goes on top.
That looks like M&M. The wrapper, not the candy.
Ashton's hair appears to be made out of amethyst crystals, so before I even started on their face, I had to make about 1 million of these things. I've seen cosplayers cutting down hot glue sticks into crystals, which seemed like a really cool idea, but we knew that would make it way too heavy, so instead we decided to make it out of XPS foam. I didn't want their head to be like a flat block, so instead I took out my foam clay and molded some eyebrows and some eye sockets. This just gives the face more of a 3-dimensional feeling and gives them a little bit more personality.
Davis, come here.
That works out.
See the brow ridge, what that does.
I made a few improvements from my prototype. In order to make sure that everything was firmly in place, I harvested some brackets from an old erector set. This gave me a solid foundation for all the springs and pulleys to attach to. That way when I pull the trigger, the eyes move fluid and react instantaneously without any slop in the line.
That was easy. Found it. We got lucky that we started this project in early Easter because I had no issues finding this egg mold that's made for candy eggs. That stand-in hair needed to go so I could make room for their brains.
I've moved outside. I am running some tests on this. Obviously, this is very egg-shaped and very smooth, and the glass in Ashton's head is much more faceted. What I'm going to attempt to do out here is heat this up with my heat gun and see if this is even going to be possible. So it does work, but it's not angled enough. That's a much better shape. Let's take this inside for test number 2.
As soon as I knew we were going to be doing this build, I knew I wanted this crinkly iridescent cellophane to be the inside of their brain, and it worked perfectly.
Better than the first one. Bad.
Using a plastic egg and this iridescent cellophane was about the only plan I had going into this project. Everything else is a lot of cutting and gluing and hoping. There is no art to making this head out of foam. I literally just glued slabs of foam in place and then kind of shaved them down to the right shape, covered them up with more crystals, and kept proceeding like that until the head shape was something that I found appropriate. Once I glued their head crystal in place, I then took out my foam clay again and molded around it so it looked a bit more natural and didn't have that jagged hot glue edge. Then I quickly carved out some ears for them before I forgot, because I would have 100% forgotten to put ears on them. Even though they were going to be covered up in fleece, I wanted to make sure that everything was sealed properly, so I painted them out with black acrylic paint and Mod Podge, and also did it with the crystals and the body, just to give a sense that it was all going to hold together and not fall apart one day. Hi, where I'm at. We have done the majority of Ashton's head, and they are Mod Podged and all the crystals are in place. We're gonna do a large portion of the backside of Ashton in fabric, just so we have the room to make sure that his hand fits in the back. But I still need to build a bit more of a solid shell off of the back of Ashton's head so that it's got a nice curve and I can fill out the rest of the crystals. I brought this over for some inspiration as well, so that when I do start painting this, it'll look as close to the real thing as possible that I can get. It's so sparkly. Whee! All right, let's get to work. Ashton's clothes presented a bit of a problem in that I couldn't make them out of leather, and I also didn't have a pattern. What I have done here is take one of Pip's vests that is roughly the same size as our torso, and I am making a pattern using a method I learned from one of Annika Victoria's videos a long time ago that I will link in the description. It's just a basic idea of how to make a pattern from a piece of clothing you already have. And because I only got to cut out my vinyl once, I instead cut and taped the paper pattern over and over again until it fit right. Ashton's skin is entirely held in place by fabric tack. I was really worried we were going to have to use contact cement, so this was my first test here, but the fabric tack worked perfectly. Once I was happy enough with my pattern, I started cutting out my vinyl pieces and then setting them in place to see if they fit right. I then realized that before I glued the vest in place, I first had to glue Ashton's chest in place, so here I am doing that. Any areas of quote-unquote exposed skin got covered up by felt, and this was also good practice before I started on their face. I have no idea how to properly sew vinyl down, so everything is hot glued down, including all of the buckles and straps that you see here. I'm sure a proper seamstress could tell you how to do it, but I am an amateur. When Ashton's body got shattered, they were put back together using liquid gold. Instead of painting that gold on, I decided to use twists of embroidery floss and glue them in place.
To make Ashton's arms removable, I hot glued a neodymium magnet to the inside of his arm, and mounted a second magnet onto the peg that stuck out of the ball and socket joint. That way the arms would just click into place, and still move very fluid.
I painted on the eyes before putting the felt on their face. Because one eye is damaged, I decided to paint both dark brown and then very gently white out the damaged eyes so that you could still vaguely see the color unshape underneath.
I just couldn't have been more happy with the way that this turned out. I've been struggling with this for some time, and after many, many hours of experimentation and trial and error, I found a solution that worked. It's simple, it's elegant, it's cheap, and best of all, now you know how to make one too.
I really didn't have that much to do with it. I mean, I was merely the vessel through which Ashton is coming to life in puppet form.
Talesin is working through you. Believe it.
I think it might actually be Percy working through me, through Talesin.
Weebit, 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 weebit. Did you want to put on Critical Role? Probably shouldn't be doing that while a kid's trying to sleep. I am so happy with today's progress. This has just come leaps and bounds further than I expected. I am exhausted, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. Nightmarish.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there, my
Looking at you.
God. How many lights do you see? 4! There are 4 lights!
Editing Tia, remember to put that in black and white.